Experiences do you have with other cultures?
Well, I've got some experiences in Germany and some abroad, and maybe I can start with something that came to my mind first. I worked with refugees, and for example, when they cook, because they're used to always eating together and sharing their food, they would always cook loads and then bring it to me in the office, and I was full up, but I knew that it would be impolite to say that I wouldn't want to eat anything more. So I always ate or hid the food somewhere to not offend them.
So I lived in Spain when I was 16, and I think that was the first time I'd done some little like travel and things like that, but that was the first time I was all by myself. But I think I was prepared so much for cultural differences that I sort of adapted to them quite well. But it was very, very different to my own country and to my own experience living with a family. But it was also about living with a different family, no matter where they were from.
Yes.
It's weird suddenly living with a family that's not your family, but pretending they're your family. And there were a lot of differences, but a lot of it also had to do with
Just
the whole family being a very different family to my own. But I think I thought at the beginning, oh, this is very Spanish. They have a big family, and the whole family always comes for dinner, and they all have the same names, and I don't know what, and they're always sort of together. And I came from a very small family, but if I'd lived with a very small family in Spain, it would have been different too.
So did you ever feel uncomfortable?
Yeah, because it was a very different setting than from what I was used to, but I always thought of it more of a different setting, not because it's a different country or a different culture, but just because people are old. But there are a few things that are unusual. So now I live in China, and I work with Chinese people. And one example that I find quite unusual is just a very small thing. Like now, I've got this Chinese colleague, and every time she sits very close to me in the office, and every time I speak, I say her name. Because I say her name and then I want to ask her something. But every time I say her name, she immediately gets up and sort of stands right next to me, and because she sees me as like her boss maybe, and then you have to tell her, sit down. She did that a lot at the beginning, but everyone always ended up saying, no, you don't have to get up. Like, I didn't even want her to be right next to me. Like, I just wanted to say, oh, can you do this and that? But I can say that without her standing next to me directly. But she would always do that as a sign of respect, I think. So, and if she still wants to do it, that's fine, because it's part of her culture. But
it was probably even harder for her to understand that she doesn't have to do it anymore, whereas for you it was easier to say that she doesn't need to do it. She probably every time she doesn't get up now feels a bit weird about not getting up, because that's how she was taught to respond.
So maybe that's her adapting to intercultural differences better than I do.
Maybe it is, yes. I think in general, because the world, like, we know a lot more about different cultures, that there's not as many awkward situations anymore, because some of the things you know beforehand already. Like, I travelled to India once, and basically when they listen, they wobble their head, or when this is yes or no for us. So when a taxi stops and you say no thank you, that to them is yes. But that was something I knew before I travelled there, just because I think people are travelling more and there's more communication about cultures in general. So I think the moments where you actually get into situations that make you feel uncomfortable are getting less and less.
Yeah, but then again, isn't it with things like that? It's so deep inside you. Like, we're just used to saying it's like this. That, although you knew it before, were you able to actually... like, because, I don't know, when we travel, we maybe read about the countries before. When we move to another country, we read about the culture and everything. But reading something or, like, learning about something is very different to actually practicing it. So if you knew it before, could you actually do it on the spot? If you called a taxi and, a taxi stopped and you said, no, thank you, I mean, I wouldn't shake my head to say no anyway.
Well, because they don't always stop next to you, so it's from a distance, so you're going, oh no, thank you. And then it's just, that's actually true.
But did you manage to do that?
I think in the beginning I didn't, but then I got very aware of it. And the more you get aware of something, but then it's not really, it's interesting because it's
So what is it trying to say, the cartoon? It's trying to say that, that maybe it's trying to say that they expected this, and then they expected the other person to behave
in a certain
way because they knew they were coming from a certain country and they had these ideas about that country, about the people living in that country.
But they're both quite, in a way, negative, aren't they? They're not...
I'm not sure, actually, the
intellectual...
So I guess he's supposed to be Asian.
Yes.
The guy on the right. What the Caucasian man thinks of the Asian man, I'm not sure if that's negative. It's just a sort of quiet Zen type.
Yeah, but also he's old, and it's a very traditional looking person. It's not a very current image of a young businessman or something, because they do look like they're gonna, like it's a business meeting or something. I think what it's also trying to say is that before we meet a different culture, we might try and get some information about a different culture so we can interact the right way. But sometimes we might rely on stereotypes to explain what will happen.
To be honest, I don't think they're very well prepared, because no one would expect a sort of Stone Age person or whatever that is to show up.
Or maybe it's not the actual thing, but maybe to them it feels more like the Caucasian people or the people from our part of the world are more out front, and they're very physical, and like we shake hands and we're very close and we're strong, and so it's a bit like an overdrawn image of what maybe some things of us stand for. Like, because to them the things we do, like shaking hands, is it makes a lot bigger impression than...
But they also sort of comply with the images that they surely must know, or as being interculturally competent, you shouldn't just be aware of how you see other people maybe in the wrong way, but also how people are probably see or think about your culture. So they are just complying with, in a way, with what the other person expects from them. Actually in the ideal world, like mostly if people now business meetings and so on with other cultures, people are quite well prepared, right? And they sort of, there's all these books now about how to
interact,
do business with China or something like that. So people are nowadays always expected to, when they visit another country or when they negotiate with people from other countries, to know how it's done there and what certain things mean and how they behave in certain ways. So if they met for a meeting, if they'd been prepared for doing business with another culture, they would probably, the Caucasian man should probably know that in Asia they don't really shake hands.
But then that can get complicated too, because if I was from China and you were, I prepared for yours and you prepared for mine, and then how do we know which one to actually...
Yeah, I always think that. But that's why it should actually be the other way around, right? The Asian man should be the one coming to shake the hand.
Yes, and then the other one be like, oh, okay, But maybe it's just maybe the whole.
But that would be the ideal. Sorry,
No,
ideal cultural, intercultural meeting. Maybe I don't know.
Or maybe just in general, you have to be more sensitive to what the other person actually wants. So instead of just focusing on selling your business plan or whatever, maybe it's in the whole communication, you just have to be sensitive to what the other person sends as a signal. Like, am I sitting too close? Is what I'm saying, the way I put it, maybe offensive to the other person? So I think intercultural communication in a setting like this is probably a lot more work than doing business with someone from my own culture.
So, in this incident, this young person, let's say it's a girl, she lived with an American family and always took time to herself to rest in the evenings, and her host mother apparently thought she was homesick. So explaining this incident, I would think, like, to me it's sort of, the incident sort of assumes that this is because of cultural differences, so what basically is suggesting that in the United States people are always chatty and
family time.
Yeah, and don't sort of just go into their rooms and are by themselves. That immediately means something bad. But
well, I think in general, probably to prevent something like that from happening is to just be honest and communicate about what you're doing. So if I had been the girl in the United States in an ideal world, I don't know obviously if I would have done it, but I would have probably said, oh, in the afternoon I'm quite tired from school and I need to do schoolwork and I'd like to spend some time on my own. And that way no one has to, because it's all always just in a situation like this, the person who's confronting you with is what they think. So the mother probably in that situation, that's how she would have acted if she was homesick. She's relying on her own experience.
Yeah. But is that a cultural thing or is that just a personal thing?
I think that's a human thing, Just that's what we do. We understand situations from our past experience. So I don't know, I agree with you.
So it could have happened anywhere in the world, like we are in Germany now, if we had a host daughter, then, and that girl stays in a room in the evenings, if I'm a very chatty person or if I never sort of spend time by myself, I might not understand it and might think, oh dear, what's wrong with her, but I don't necessarily think it's
cultural.
Assuming that it's a cultural, intercultural difficulty would be suggesting that all Americans don't understand people needing their own time. But I guess it's part of intercultural knowledge or competence to be able to explain yourself. And expect that the other party won't understand if I do something this and that way. So I don't have to necessarily do it the way they wanted to, but it's part of the intercultural competence to know that they will not expect this, and to approach it beforehand and say this and that is going to happen. But just to explain myself, rather than I think intercultural competence, people always think you always have to adapt and do the same as the other culture if you're living in another culture or something like that, but not necessarily, because it's people are different. So it also means that if I'm interculturally competent, I would approach the subject, say I do this differently. If it's not a problem, then I still do it that way, but at least everyone's aware that things are different.
Yeah. You basically just have to make sure that you don't offend everyone. And if there's like a family night, in this example, and Friday is the family night, then you would maybe have to compromise and turn up for the family night and maybe sacrifice your 1 or 2 hours alone in your room.
Yeah, but I think definitely that what will help incidents like this is just to be upfront.
Yes.
And
but that requires actually thinking about the situation before it
yes,
comes up.
Of course.
So, yeah.
And often that you can't do that because
you wouldn't even think that someone else would think that way.
But then in that case, what they can do afterwards is she should just say, I'm not homesick, but this is what I like to do.